this meeting to orders, with or without Jay. We'll see if he shows up. He didn't call me or send me a note or anything. So we'll call this to order. Can I get a roll call, please, Brianna?
Yeah. Chair Kimbrough,
Here.
Member Burge,
Here.
Member McQuarrie, Member Mozingo,
Here.
Member Nori,
Here.
Member Schaefer,
Here.
Member Wiggins. A quorum is present.
Great, thank you. All right, this is chance for beginning public comment. I'm going to introduce you guys after we get public comment. How's that? Okay. Public comment for 3 minutes, and this is that time for you to come up, Danny, if you want to. Nothing today? Okay, great. So we'll move on from that then, because there's nobody else here to talk to. So, public comment. So now we're at the approval of minutes. Do I have any changes, or can I have a motion? You guys can abstain if you want, since you weren't here.
I can go ahead and make a motion.
Yes, that's
All
why
right.
I'm looking at you.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm taking over. Okay, sounds good. All right, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve. Let's see, what was the date? The Open Space Advisory Committee meeting of December 16th, 2024.
There you go. Do I have a second? Second, Mary. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I forgot my word. Abstain. Thank you. So do I hear 2 abstentions then from you?
I suppose if that's appropriate.
Yes, please.
I read them, but
Yeah, well,
I
you,
was here.
you, huh? Oh, you were
I was
here.
in the audience.
Well, you don't have to abstain, then you could vote, I guess.
I read them.
All right, well, cool. I forgot you were here incognito. Doesn't matter, you were here.
You're the one.
All right, so we'll get started with an introduction. It's not, I'm gonna sneak it in here. For the new board members that are here tonight, committee members. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself, Charles, and give us some of your background? And
My name is Charles Norrie. I was basically just not spur of the moment, but I was on the board of Muscle Powered, and it was suggested a few months ago that by one of the board members who retired this last time around, and so here I am. I am interested in the open spaces of Carson City, and I spent a long time using them, much more than administrating them, but I hope to continue on in that tradition.
okay, Keith.
I'm Keith Schaefer, longtime Carson City resident and business owner, a civil engineer, practicing civil engineer here in town, and have been here since the 90s. Grew up in northern Nevada, was raised here, and like Charles, I use the open space and have enjoyed very much what the city has done in creating and maintaining the open spaces. I've served on the Charter Review Committee for the city, and thought that it would be a time to serve on another board, so I'm here to serve.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, back to business. First item on the agenda is election of officers. So it's kind of a cumbersome process. So there's nominations for people to be in office. So that's what I call for first, is any nominations for chair, and then I'll call for a second. Mary.
I nominate Mark Kimbrough. Can you do another term, or is that?
Oh, I'll do another term.
I nominate you. Second.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, that's for the nomination. Do I have to do another one for the vote?
Since you did one specifically for the nomination, may as well do another one specifically for the vote. But what I would recommend is doing the nomination for vice chair next, and then you can vote on both of them at the same
Thank
time.
you. Thank you. All right, now I'm looking for nominations for the vice chair, and you can self-nominate yourself if you want to. So. Vice chairs, Smiling Sam?
Just because I'm sitting next to you.
Well, no pressure, Sam.
If anyone that has a little more time on their hands is open to the nomination, I'd recommend that person. If there are no recommendations for that person, then I don't mind helping out where I can.
Is any desire on this end of the, this is a cumbersome process.
I was gonna, I don't know Charles. Hi, Charles, I'm Mary. But if he was on the muscle power, I'm wondering if he has some,
Oh, stick him right in the bat, right off the bat.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, so I got two that might be happy to. So what about Aaron? Does Aaron have any thoughts?
I'm sure I'll nominate myself to be vice chair. Why not?
Well, that's I hate this part.
That makes it more complicated.
Yeah, I'd rather have draw straws or something.
I would second Erin. I mean, you just became the liaison for the foundation for Parks and Rec, right? So I think you've stepped up in an appropriate manner. I mean, and I would second her nomination if just to keep things moving here.
If we consider what she said, a self-nomination as the nomination, okay, then I have that, and then I have a second. Any discussion? Everybody got out of that deal. The call for the question, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Unanimous. So now I have a group of two, myself and Aaron as the chair and vice chair. Can I have a motion to that, please? Not nominate. We're voting now. Place in office.
I'm the vice president of the open space.
And then,
Vice chair.
and the chair, so you gotta do them both, Mary.
And I nominate Mike Kimbrough.
Not nominate.
I mean, approve Mark Kimbrough as the chair of the open space.
All that pressure.
I know.
Okay, so did Brian understand that we got both of them in there, myself and Aaron? Okay, as long as,
I second.
okay, good.
second
I got a second. Thank
Motion.
you. All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Unanimous. Whew. Good. We got through that. Thanks, Mary. Okay, so next on the agenda. For possible action, discussion, possible action regarding the open space work plan for fiscal year 2026. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So this item before you is the draft work plan for fiscal year 2026, which would start July 1st, 2025 and go through June 30th, 2026. There's some different sections in here that we'll be going through: a capital improvement project section, land acquisition, management activities, and planning activities and reports, as well as several exhibits, and I'll kind of walk you through those as well. But I just thought I would start by kind of just going through and giving you a highlight of some of our different projects. And I'm just realizing I gave Todd my highlighted copy, but that's okay. So starting off with the capital improvement projects, we have the SNPLMA grant for the Buzzy's Ranch property. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Just find my place. Okay, perfect. So right off the bat, we have the Buzzy's Ranch property, the water rights acquisition that we've been planning for and talking about for many years now. In 2025 and 2026, our priorities include completing a water study and a water report. Those are both pieces of required due diligence that SNPLMA needs us to complete before we can move forward with authorizing an appraisal and some of the next steps of the acquisition. So that is going to be our main priorities on that SNPLMA-funded project in the coming year. I'll talk about the other elements of our water rights acquisition in another section. Of course, within the Carson River corridor, we have some ongoing noxious weed abatement grants. That's funding that we routinely receive and helps us fund noxious weed abatement throughout the river corridor and other locations. Moving along, and I won't highlight every single project, but of course, if you have questions at the end, please let me know. So moving into the SNPLMA-funded Prison Hill West project. This project is currently under construction. In 2025, we anticipate that we will be continuing the trail construction and actually completing that this spring, and then hoping to hold a grand opening after that. Related to the Prison Hill Motorized Recreation Area and our Recreational Trails Program grant, this is for the installation of a vault toilet, as well as additional fencing and signage to be installed at the OHV area. We are anticipating all of those elements completed in 2025. Another SNPLMA-funded project, the Riverview Trailhead. So in 2025-26, we anticipate receiving a notice to proceed from SNPLMA, in which we'll then move into kind of the design and engineering phase, and we'll be working on a design for that trailhead renovation. Looking at Silver Saddle Ranch specifically, we do have a couple items earmarked, specifically looking at repair or possibly replacement of some of the roofs out at Silver Saddle. We also are looking at pursuing replacement of the siding on the red house at Silver Saddle Ranch. These would all be conducted in cooperation with SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. We also anticipate looking into doing a full plumbing evaluation for the red house. Just since the infrastructure out there is getting old, we want to make sure that the plumbing is all up to snuff. Another recreational trails program grant specific to the river corridor. This is looking at creating kind of the universal Carson River Trail and rebranding a lot of our trails out there into one cohesive segment. So in the coming year, we'll be finalizing our interpretive panels and getting all new cohesive signage installed throughout the river corridor, which is exciting. So I mentioned I would talk about the remaining, well, here we are in land acquisition. So speaking about the Buzzy's Ranch water rights acquisition as a whole, in addition to the SNPLMA-funded portion, we are looking at moving forward with the acquisition for the remaining portion. We may be looking at 3 different transactions, one being SNPLMA, one being another separate transaction with Vidler Water Company, and then potentially a 3rd transaction with private sellers. So we'll be working on that in the coming year, and that is certainly one of my main priorities as open space manager. Another acquisition that's been kind of ongoing, the Old Woods Ranch Conservation Easement. So you all may remember when we took a site visit out there. In 2025 and 26, we'll be working with Nevada Land Trust to finalize the draft conservation easement. And then we would be bringing that before OSAC and eventually the Board of Supervisors to approve both the easement as well as the authorization of matching funds. Moving into management activities, some of these are routine and some of these are new. So related to the Buzzy's Ranch Trail and the bank erosion that you all have seen and that we've talked about over time, we're hoping that some solutions for that area come out in the Carson River Master Plan process that we're working on right now. But we certainly, in the meantime, are going to be monitoring that bank erosion and researching kind of some non-invasive methods to help stabilize the bank, like willow pole planting and other kind of re-veg activities. Of course, we'll be working on the sheep project. This will be the 19th year that we'll be running the fuel reduction project using sheep in Carson. That remains a big priority and source of effort for us. Related to education, both our senior natural resource specialist and our volunteer coordinator have done a lot and continue to do a lot in the way of education. We had a very successful Carson City Trails Challenge last year. We'll be capitalizing on all that success and doing that again in 2025. We're also working on creating a City Nature Challenge. This is actually a nationwide effort that we are participating in, but it's a bio blitz to get the public out to learn about different open space areas and the plants and animals that live there, and help us kind of with those citizen science efforts to monitor and document those species. We continue to work with river wranglers on the Conserve Carson River Workday and Trout in the Classroom programs as well. Related to the Prison Hill OHV area, we continue to implement a regular maintenance schedule out there for all of the various features that we've installed, all the erosion control features like check dams and lead-off ditches. We have our staff going out weekly and maintaining those features, so that will continue in the coming year. Related to Prison Hill Master Plan and some of the implementation there, we have earmarked a couple projects that we'll be implementing in the coming year. One of them is kind of some revegetation efforts on the Kuntz Lane parcel. So working on rehabbing some old roads, doing road to trail conversions, and then doing reseeding and decommissioning of disturbed areas as needed. And then speaking of the OHV area, that's that project to install the restroom and other signage improvements that is identified in the Prison Hill Master Plan. So spoke to that already. I wanted to make sure we highlighted all the restoration and revegetation projects. This isn't everything that we do. Certainly as something, if we have fire or other disturbance that comes up, we respond to that quickly. But as far as things that we have just planned, I mentioned the re-veg around the Kuntz area, but we also are planning to do some restoration and some pollinator garden planting in and around the Empire Ranch Trail and the Empire Ranch Trailhead. So that will be forthcoming. There's a lot of routine maintenance activities identified. I wanted to give you a sense of some of the just things that especially our maintenance crew are working on throughout the year. So things like road repair and maintenance, erosion control as needed, fuels reduction throughout open spaces and adjacent to residents, trail maintenance as needed, noxious weed, and as I mentioned, the travel management and route decommissioning. So those are all things that we do all the time and will continue to do. Additionally, at Silver Saddle Ranch, in addition to kind of looking at some of those buildings and working closely with SHPO to make some repairs out there, there's also some work needed around the ranch. So things like replacing the arena fencing that's in disrepair, continuing to implement Russian olive removal, willow removal adjacent to the trail, things like that. So we'll continue implementing those, and certainly we'll be working closely with SHPO on those other items related to the buildings. I wanted to highlight our volunteer program because they are doing so much currently and in the coming year. So our volunteer coordinator who works department-wide, she'll be continuing to implement our Adopt a Trail and Adopt a Park programs, our Trail Ambassador programs, and then really creating robust opportunities for the public, whether that be weed removal, trash cleanup, re-veg, and then just assisting with education and outreach. So this is in our planning section. So after we're able to complete our water rights acquisitions, there are some management and planning out at Buzzy's Ranch and Silver Saddle that we'll be implementing. We have the Buzzy's Ranch management plan that's come before you several years ago at this point. We'll be working to kind of finalize that and implement components of that management plan, as well as the Silver Saddle Ranch pasture agreement. So just getting some agreements in place at the ranches. We also are going to work to create a monitoring report to just track progress out at Buzzy's Ranch, since there'll be so much new activities going on out there with the water rights acquisition. The Carson River Master Plan remains a big planning element, and Chair Kimbrough is involved in that effort, as well as Vice Chair McQuarrie is also involved. So we'll be continuing that effort through the next fiscal year. We're still very much in the public and stakeholder engagement portions of the project. So we'll be hosting our second stakeholder meeting, as well as hosting a public workshop for the public to come out and see what we've been working on. And we're hoping to have the draft of the Carson River Master Plan completed by the end of 2025. We're hopeful that we'll stay on track for that. We have a lot of kind of ongoing mapping priorities. We want to continue to map the open space areas, make sure that we have high quality maps for different properties, but also projects, tracking weed abatement, tracking re-veg progress, things like that can all be done through mapping. So our senior natural resource specialist is a very talented with ArcGIS, so she'll continue to work on that. As far as monitoring is concerned and surveys, there's a lot of ongoing monitoring that we do every year. For example, the migratory bird monitoring along the Carson River. We monitor the conservation easement at Horse Creek Ranch. We monitor the architectural buildings at Silver Saddle, the OHV area report, and then the Prison Hill Fire. So those are all things that we've been doing and will continue to do. But new in the way of that, we are going to be creating a monitoring report for the Kuntz area restoration to be able to track that progress over time. And then something that we've been talking about recently is we do a lot with cottonwoods in the way of beavers and protecting the cottonwoods from beaver damage. So we want to find a good way to track some of that effort as well, so we can make sure that we're tracking those areas over time. As far as the programmatic agreement update is concerned, we hope to finalize this with SHPO in the coming year and then be able to fully execute that agreement so that we can begin working off that amendment. So right now we're just waiting for SHPO to finalize their comments. Let's see. As far as some of our ongoing efforts to complete cultural resource monitoring in Section 106 in conjunction with SHPO. We hope to update the entire kind of Section 106 for Silver Saddle Ranch. It had been done many years ago and is in need for an update. And then continue working with SHPO on the Nevada Site Stewardship Program, which is working with volunteers to help monitor some of our archaeological, so not the buildings, but the on-the-ground historic resources that are at Silver Saddle. So that's an ongoing priority for us as well. And then there's some ongoing trail priorities here identified. And of course, Greg is here if you have any specific questions about those. And then also within your packet, I just wanted to point out the different exhibits. So Exhibit B is our current open space property list. Gives you the acreage and some basic information about the properties. We also have a wonderful map, shows all of our current open space properties. And then the final exhibit is the open space opportunities map. This is a map that it is outdated. It was created a number of years ago to kind of track different private or state or otherwise properties that open space could be interested in if they were to come up for potential acquisition. So you'll notice some of those have actually been acquired by Carson City already, but we do continue to use that as a kind of guiding tool when acquisition opportunities arise. So with that, I will take any questions.
Start on the left.
Very exciting. There's lots of cool projects up. I'm excited about the pollinator gardens and the revegetation specifically. My question is regarding the Parks and Recs Foundation. I'm curious if staff or any of the other committee members have any ideas of anything that we could partner with them. They were asking, and I will be reporting back to them again tomorrow. So no pressure, but if anybody has any ideas, that's my question.
I'm wondering about agenda. How that can be dealt with under review of the budget. So was it part of your presentation to squeak in there an opportunity for us to give ideas for the?
Related to the foundation,
Right.
I don't believe they're going to come and physically give an update, but we did include that update.
Right.
It is on the agenda. I can't speak for the appropriate way to do this, but perhaps it could be brought up at that time and that might fit in. But Todd could speak to that
Todd might have
perhaps.
to pull on that, because if we come up with a bunch of ideas, we didn't tell the public we were going to do that tonight. So it's like, which is part of the structure we're supposed to follow. a lot of
Sure,
times.
it's not on the work plan.
And I hate
I
doing
saw the
that.
update, that's why I brought it
Yeah,
up.
I
But you're
hate
right, probably not the right
saying
time.
no, but it's the process we're in, and it would certainly delay your response when you meet every 2 months, and the next time we meet with Parks and Rec with a full agenda. So it's part of the system. So do you have a comment to that, Todd?
I agree with the resolution I think you all came up with to address it when it comes up.
Okay, great. So it's later in the agenda, so great, good, okay. Any other comments or, okay, Mary?
Lindsay, just a quick question and comment. Do you know when the willow pole planting is going to take place? And is there a certain time it's supposed to take place in the washout area down?
Great question. So within open space, we're relatively new to willow pole planting. It's something we definitely still need to research so we can kind of wrap our heads around, the timing. I know that typically they're often harvested kind of late winter, and then they're kind of overwintered through spring and then planted in spring. We very much still need to kind of wrap our heads around that. So I don't anticipate that we will probably get a project on the ground for this upcoming spring, but perhaps the following spring. But we'll keep you apprised of that for sure.
And I think, I would imagine, because it seems it's a specific skill, do we hire someone to do that? I mean, are you just gonna wade out to the river and go, you know?
I think our research will help us kind of determine that. We have partner with the Nature Conservancy. They've actually harvested willows from our property before, and then they've installed them up there just to increase their willow diversity. So they're a partner that we can kind of pick their brain and find out how they go about doing it. Because certainly, safety, we would want to make sure that we have the right people to do that project. And it may be something where volunteers can help harvest the poles, and then maybe the installation is done by someone different. So all good things to research.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that would be really amazing if we could help, because it's a kind of a fascinating project to be able to do that, to save part of the shoreline there.
Sure.
The other comment is, I'd like to encourage everyone, I know that the washoe are involved with some of the signage,
Mhm.
and I would really like to see that on many signs as possible around the entire valley, so it's not just a little spot check here, like, oh yeah, the washoe, but more of a comprehensive cannot talk tonight, integration of that culture, which was here for 10,000 years before we all showed up. So, and I'm sure that you're all working on that, but I just wanted to put that out there on as many signs as possible, even if it's just words describing, something that's on the sign in Washoe.
Sure. No, I echo that, and we're actually working closely on two signs that will feature some information about like the Stewart Indian School and some of the history there. And then I have some plans for some of our riparian signs. There's some interesting words that we've learned about working, and I'd love to highlight those. So, yeah,
All right, thank
absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
To the right.
Great report. Thank you. I have a couple questions, and these are like really simple ones, and just because of the newbie here. What is our fiscal year?
Great question. So we're talking right now about fiscal year 26. So that starts July 1 of this year and then ends
Okay.
June 30, 2026.
July 1 to June 30. Okay, cool. There's an item in the report about dog rules. Is that a cooperative effort with Parks and Rec? It looks like it is, but is that part of your work plan, and are you creating those or working together with folks to come up with those?
No, I'm glad you brought that up, and so sorry. You missed quite a long history of working on the dog rules and regulations here in Carson City, and that's something we work very closely with Parks on. So kind of the end that we've taken is helping with outreach and education. So our volunteer coordinator has put together some great events in the past, really just highlighting the importance of picking up your dog waste and the impacts to the environment, things like that. We're always looking to, increase signage as needed and just get the word out better. So yeah, those are absolutely things we work cooperatively with parks on. But then there's also some open space specific endeavors as well.
Do any of those, and I'm sorry, I'm like,
No,
again,
you're
I'm,
great.
I'm new to the
Yeah.
party, but is there any of our open spaces where dogs are not allowed?
Great question. We do have a small number, actually just one, so the waterfall trail. Dogs are prohibited at that location to protect Carson City's drinking water. And then we do have some restrictions. So in the Washoe wetlands, which are off of Lampa, as well as the Fullstone wetlands, dogs are required to be on leash in that area, again, for wildlife protection. And off the top of my head, those are the only areas we have specific restrictions. But we do have the rules and regulations, the dog policy. We went through that process a couple years ago. So all that's online. We have a great map that kind of shows what the different regulations are.
All right, just a couple of other real
No,
simple
sure.
ones. How are we, or how is your staff, how are we monitoring migratory birds?
Yeah, that's a
How
great
are we
Great
doing that?
question. So a few years ago, when we were building the Buzzy's Ranch Trail that goes through Buzzy's Ranch, there was some concerns at the time about potential impacts to migratory bird habitat through there. And so one of the mitigations that we did is we said, well, we'll do monitoring every year. So we actually had worked with RCI at the time. They helped us put together a protocol, and then we've been implementing that protocol ever since. It's pretty simple. It involves mostly sight and auditory counts, as well as diversity counts, and we do that at several locations throughout the Buzzy's Ranch Trail, as well as Riverview Park, just to create a comparison. And then we may look at adding additional areas in the future, but right now those are the two primary areas we're doing specific monitoring.
So is that volunteers or staff you have on your calendar? Hey, it's migratory time, go out and count? Or-
Yeah, so it's staff-led, but we actually do bring volunteers into the fold. We've got some really amazing birders who are more talented than any of us, and so they help support that as well. And yep, we get up at 5 a.m. twice a year, and we count birds, and it's a great time.
Great, let me know.
Okay.
I want to,
Okay.
I'd love to do that. With regard to what's going on on Kuntz Lane and the Kuntz Trails in those areas, is there, the really cool vertical mulch process that's happening in some of those trails is neat. Is there seeding that occurs together with that to help create some growth? Or is there not going to be seeding there? And then I'll just ask this question, you can answer them both. Are there any, I didn't see it on the work plan, and maybe you've answered this when we did our little drive-by, but are there any plans to improve that section of Kuntz Lane from Edmonds up to the parking area better than it currently is now with this project? Or is that as good as it gets because it's not really on open space property?
All good questions. I'll take the vertical mulching and then pass your second question on to Greg. So vertical mulching, for those who don't know, it's a great technique. We did not come up with it. The Great Basin Institute, who's a local nonprofit, we think they kind of cornered the protocol. But what it is it's a way to visually make disturbed areas disappear. So you go in and you kind of churn up the soil. You can actually sort of plant dead sagebrush, rocks, other materials, just so you're kind of creating a visual barrier. It's not just an open, disturbed space. We do seeding at the same time. When we're churning up the soil, it's a great time to put down seed. We put down quite a lot of seed this year. We'll likely need to put down some additional seed next year. So we'll just kind of be monitoring. That's part of what the report's for, is to monitor the progress with the re-veg out there. But yes, to answer your question, seeding is typically always coupled with that decommissioning.
Okay, so for the second part of your question, Greg Berger, Trails Coordinator. The grant that we have for the Kuntz Lane project from SNPLMA, they don't allow us to or roads is not a part of what's in that grant, in the grant nomination. You can't nominate a road for work. So we did a little bit of work on the actual access road itself off of Coons Lane, because that qualified, but work on Coons Lane, because it's a city street, does not qualify for the grant. And so, no, that's not part of the project. We're hoping that, as time and funding, or staffing and funding allows, through Public Works, that maybe they can make a few improvements to it, going forward. But it's not actually part of our current project, so.
Charles, go ahead.
When we were doing our tour the week before last, a few items came up that you mentioned were dependent upon federal funding, or they were paused. Is any of our agenda right now dependent on federal funding or grants?
So that first section, the capital improvement project section, that's typically where we're including any of our large funded grant projects, like many of those SNPLMA funded projects. And at this time, those projects are proceeding. So.
Oh, okay.
Sam?
All good.
Well, I was actually going to speak to that because I'm nervous here, having 50 years experience in Parks and Recs, and the federal government grants have been pulled before. If they haven't been under contract, they get yanked. So half of the page stuff you have in here is money I don't know that we can trust is actually going to become a reality.
All the grants that I included all have been awarded. They all have grant agreements associated with them. None of them in there are like TBD or that we're waiting on. They all have agreements associated.
How's SNPLA work? Is that a federal agency?
Well, it's run through the BLM, which is a federal agency, but it's funding that comes from the state, and it's under legislation, and so we're working closely, but at this time, status quo.
Well, like the FLAP grant we did hasn't been put in anywhere.
Right. I did not include that.
That's
we don't know on
transportation,
that
right,
yet.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that it may or may not happen, even though you're under contract. So I have no trouble with the fact that they're looking for ways to cut budgets, so our grandkids don't have a $5 trillion deficit in their life. But this process is nerve-wracking. All the nonprofits, a lot of them aren't getting their money, so and they have contracts with them. So we'll cross our fingers and see what happens in the Malay here. I'm really heartfelt about what's happened to our federal partners here, because Nevada relies upon them. About everything you have in here deals with some part of an agency sometimes. So I'm concerned that you won't have that contact that you've always had to call on the phone, maybe. Recreation's never been considered an essential part of doing business in this planet, having gone through some of those. When I went to work from the state parks, I left the county parks, and that's when they had to cut the budgets. In the state, you have to be zero at the end of the year, so they were cut budgets, and I was a low man on the totem pole. The only thing that saved me is I was a wild horse, and nobody wanted to bump me. But they had a process in place at least, so you had a year like to bump people and move people. Because all these people on probation have just made a move somewhere to where they're at to be working. It just bumps me out, and I hope our partners survive. The wreck's been just annihilated. I remember the Carson Forest Service officer had like at least 4 or 5 people in wreck, and they have one now. So it's been going on for years, so I'm bummed out. So I hope that all these happen, and that due to the fact that you do have contracts in place. But transportation sometimes will get yanked even while the contract's in place sometimes. We all cross our fingers. So I just needed to make that as a non-political statement. Just a matter of process that should concern us. So I'm even hope that we can put on the agenda later of how much this committee can speak to that in writing to support anything that, all the letters are flying now. I've already been approached by 3 different groups to send letters to our congressman because the funding's all been getting, the bicycle pathways and some other projects of trails have been yanked. So I don't know how far this committee can go as a semi-political body and say, we support, please send the money for these or whatever, something specific. I don't know if we can lobby or not. Todd, can we lobby to any extent?
That's a good question. The city can certainly lobby, if you can, if you wanted to work within the city and work with the mayor. You can certainly lobby as an individual.
Right.
Lobbying as officially as part of your as a board member or as a committee member, it's not specifically part of your duties, but I could certainly look into that and let you know if you'd like.
Well, could we pass like a resolution and send it to the Board of Supervisors and asking them to do, I guess, huh?
I'm not sure if you could pass a resolution, but you could certainly the board could or the committee could certainly make a recommendation to them.
Okay. I say that now because we're talking about money and budgets in the future of this organization for a while. So just pre-planning, hoping to have things in place. So I'm gonna, maybe we can put it on the future agenda item to discuss how these committees could ask if this does happen. The poor federal people I've been talking to, the only way they find out anything that's going on is read the newspaper. I can't believe that. Sure glad I don't work for them right now. So enough said about that. These budget items, not budget. When you get down to the specifics of the things you're gonna do, like the Red House, how are those in the budget, which you're gonna present? Should I wait till you present the budget to explain that?
Lindsay Boyer for the record. I can answer that now. So, and we'll get into it, but we do have several different line items within the budget that help support those types of efforts, whether it's professional services. We need to hire a consultant to help advise us how to proceed with some of those, especially since they are historic. We want to make sure that we're doing everything that's needed to preserve those, as well as maintenance management line item that helps support all of our maintenance and management activities. And then we have other pots of funding that we can get into if it's a larger, more in-depth, like a roof repair. That would be probably a capital improvement project, and we have line items to support that as well.
So that's not in any of this package tonight then, huh? The line item stuff, is it?
I'll get in, yeah, I'll be covering that the next,
So
but
that's, I couldn't find like, where do you find the citing for the Red House in the budget?
it isn't,
That's what
I
I'm
didn't,
kinda
I didn't write
asking.
it down,
Right.
that particular item under that particular line item, but those are just how we use those pots of funding, and I can explain that a little
Okay,
further.
that's
But yeah, it's not codified, like individual tasks are not necessarily codified in the budget.
Well, this is how many staff do you have? That's a great work program, and I know you guys do that level of work, so it's really great. It looks well done. A lot of work's been done, and so I just cross our fingers on the money part, because Parks and Rec wouldn't be anywhere near what they are without federal money. No way. Having seen that in my, 95% matches and all these things that happen that are just phenomenal. So, cross our fingers. Okay, enough said about that. So 5B is a possible action item. Can I have a motion, or is there any more discussion or questions? Oh, you want to come up, Danny? Before the motion? Sure, come on up. I'm going to call for public comment. Thanks for waving your hand at me, Danny.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. I think Ms. Boyer did a fine job of presenting what they have in mind. I'd like to suggest, though, caught my ear, is that the Russian olive tree is a hardy tree. And while it was brought in, so many other plants here that aren't native have served a purpose. They served a purpose when they were put in. They're hardy, and I believe the ones out at Fuji Park shouldn't be taken out if they're part of that plan, because they have fit into that environment well and have done the job that they were meant to do where they were originally. brought from. And I don't want to see that. They've set up their own ecosystem and such, so I don't want them willy-nilly out without consideration of their location. I also, it was suggested that I didn't bring up some of the things I would have liked to had on that work list that I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
Russian olive.
Russian olive. And one of the things, though, it was in here, and I didn't print up the whole deal, but that the monkey flower has been acknowledged as an endangered species. And while I think that some of the activity around the, it's right
Hey,
here.
hey, Danny, that's not true.
I'm sorry, but
They still got some more work to do.
Well,
They've done
it's,
stage
it's,
one.
it's been asked to be put on the endanger list. I'm sorry, I should have said that
There you go.
differently.
I just want to make sure you understood that too.
Oh, thank you. I did read it,
Okay.
and sorry about misspeaking. Can I have time back? No, I'm just teasing.
All
I didn't
right.
bring my deal. But the deal is that I have a list of things that I would have liked on that work list and some considerations about signage as well, and I appreciate that. But it's on a different level, and it's been suggested that that list would do better to go in front of the Board of Parks and Rec. So I will keep you from having to deal with my list tonight, but I do appreciate the presentation and the mappage, and it really was very helpful. I do think that olive, and one thing I'd like to bring up to the new members is that the state has put out a deal asking cities in the state to consider migration corridors. And to help implement that, they want our considerations. We have land around here that is federal, we have land as state, and that's going to be popping up for sale. It's either going to end up with us if we're fast enough to acknowledge a place that might be a rightful place, one that we should consider for our use as one of those corridors. And so those things I think should be on our radar. Also the stop-bys, they call it a rest stop for insects. And so all these areas that we're suggesting you put in very low water maintenance yards aren't going to do it for those species that are going to need that little rest over. They're going to need to be well planted with local plants, of course, and ones that would feed them and help them on their ways. So I just wanted to bring that up. That was not part of this, and so I guess I'm soapboxing, so thank you, sorry.
Don't apologize. Thanks, Denny. Okay, I pulled back for a motion or any more discussion.
I move to approve the open space work plan as presented for fiscal year 2026, as presented.
Can I get a second?
I can go ahead and second.
Sam, second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? We're done. Unanimous. Great program. Okay, we'll go to 5C. Discussion possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on the fiscal year 26 open space budget. You're on again, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So this item before you couples with the work plan. So this is the draft budget for fiscal year 26. So again, July 1 of this year through June 30 of 2026. Since we do have some new members, I did want to just provide a quick, but high-level overview of how our budgets work. So we are funded by the Quality of Life Sales Tax Initiative, question 18. That fund is split between both parks and open space. So open space receives 40%, and then 40% goes towards parks capital, and then 20% goes towards parks maintenance. Any unspent funds within the Quality of Life funding, they roll over to what's called an undesignated fund. So any line items or just any extra money that isn't spent, it's all rolled over into that account. And that undesignated account is what it can be used for potential acquisitions, capital improvement projects, grant, match, things like that. Our funds don't commingle. Quality of life funds can only be spent within open space and those designated areas. As far as within your packet, there are many different exhibits and things for you guys to take a look at. I'll start by looking at Exhibit A. This is just a kind of a high-level snapshot of our budget where we have different line items and kind of how money is spent. So you can see a breakdown of all the different staff that are supported through our budget. So you can see that some staff are supported 100% by quality of life open space funds, and then some positions are partially funded. The reason for that is that other funding may come from parks or the general fund, because many of our positions work throughout the department. For example, Greg actually is the city's trails coordinator. He works citywide, and so that helps offset those tasks that he may be doing that are not specifically just for open space. Same thing goes with the volunteer coordinator. Park rangers, those are split between the department. So I just wanted to call attention to some of those different percentages and the reason why not all of them are 100%. And then, of course, we do pay a portion of many different important staff members throughout the department that help support open space in our admin and business operations as well. We do have a robust hourly seasonal budget. Right now, we just have our trailhead caretaker who helps open and close facilities. And then we do have one seasonal position right now that kind of works as needed, but we do have a budget there for seasonals. Related to equipment, I'll be talking about this a little bit later, but we do have some money earmarked for tool cat replacement. So that's one of our maintenance equipment we use all the time for a myriad of projects throughout open space, whether it's sign installation, fence repair, trail work, kind of a jack of all trades type of equipment. So that is up for replacement. So we'll be working to replace that. And then the different kind of main line items or areas that I wanted to call your attention to are kind of outlined throughout this document. So professional services is one. I mentioned that's kind of a catch-all for any sort of consultant services we may need. For example, working on the water study or the water report I mentioned earlier, different Section 106 services, things like that. It also is the funding that we use for our restrooms and our restroom cleaning, and any of those types of services come out of professional services. And then maintenance management is the line item I mentioned is kind of a catch-all for all of our maintenance and management activities. So that could be anything from signage, supplies, tools, small equipment, materials, kind of anything that we might need to help support the maintenance throughout open space. We have an operating supplies line item. This is what helps fund both the volunteer program as well as the park ranger program. So I mentioned that all the park ranger expenses are a 50-50 cost share with parks. So things like their uniforms or different safety equipment, education materials, we help support that. And then same thing with the volunteer program, such as swag, things that we provide our volunteers with. That's coming out of our operating supply budget. We have a couple line items in here that are static. They're not things that we have control over that we can change. One of those is fire suppression. So we are one of the divisions throughout the city that help contribute towards the fire suppression fund in a contract with NDF. This is not something that we have control over or can change, but help support that very important work. The Horse Creek Ranch Stewardship Account, this was a fund that came to us when we acquired the easement for Horse Creek Ranch. There was a small donation, or 50,000 is not small, but there was a donation that came to us that would just follow and stay with that property in perpetuity. So if there's any major needs out there, there is funding to draw from to help support that. Related to inmates, so with our inmate program within the department, we have the ability to work with inmates to help support different maintenance projects. There's a cost that's associated with that, and that's outlined here. The ISC General Fund, again, this is a line item that we don't have the power to adjust. That's part of kind of the day-to-day business operations of Carson City. Same thing for fleet management. And then our capital improvement project, I mentioned, so that's where we would move funding in for large grant projects, large pieces of equipment, things like that. And so the ultimate funding for that capital improvement line item comes from undesignated. That money is moved as needed. That undesignated, again, is the account where any unspent funds roll over. And it's a pretty healthy budget, so that's good to have in case an acquisition or something were to arise. And of course, the Buzzy's Ranch water rights acquisition that we are in the middle of, funds to support that would come from undesignated as well. So that's Exhibit A, just kind of gives you a very high-level snapshot. Exhibit B is, for those who maybe are a little bit more interested in the numbers, you can kind of see the different budgets over the years. So it includes fiscal year 23 and 24. So you can see kind of what we had budgeted and then ultimately what we actually spent. So that gives you a good sense of kind of how we're spending money over time. And that includes kind of, again, the proposed budget for this upcoming year. We won't know kind of how some of our expenses for the previous year come out until later. So we're always kind of working off of projections. Let's see, Exhibit C is the department org chart that includes kind of all of our staff and how they're laid out. So just included for your edification. Exhibit D is the fiscal year 26 tentative budget priorities for the whole department. So you can see kind of, priorities department-wide. And you can see under the Quality of Life Open Space Fund, there's a few items earmarked, one being the Buzzy's Ranch water right acquisition that we've discussed. The second one being that dingo equipment, so that's the name of it, but that's to replace our toolcat. That item will potentially be split with parks as it can be used department-wide. We're working on a project to improve the volunteer community cleanup trailer. It's definitely in aging condition as far as the outside appearance is concerned, so we're going to be working with Carson Rotary, and they have agreed to help support kind of a facelift on that project. And then another one we have earmarked is asphalt repair or replacement at the Morgan Mill trailhead. So those are just a few of the priorities for fiscal year 26. And then lastly, if you didn't have enough numbers, Exhibit E is a very tight snapshot of fiscal year 24, the final budget. So this tells you exactly how much was spent. So if anyone's interested in that, what do we actually have question, this is kind of gives you a sense of, those actual expenses. So with that, I will take any questions.
I'll start on the right this time.
When I'm looking at Exhibit B, so fiscal year 24 was, I'm just trying to get these fiscal year nomenclature in my mind, was 23-24. Fiscal year 25 is 24-25. And we're talking about fiscal year 26, which is 25-26.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So in the fiscal year 24 budget, I'm just curious, so you budgeted for just salaries, for example, because there are several categories that seem to be significantly different in the budget versus the actual spent. And then when you get down to where you're talking about the undesignated projects, say, for example, in fiscal year 24, there was $3.9 million budgeted but nothing spent, but then nothing carried over to 25 and doesn't appear to be in 26. And so I'm just wondering, did that monies evaporate? Did it go somewhere else? Or I don't even know if those are good questions, but.
They're excellent questions, very, very thoughtful. So your first question, it appears that there's a lot more budgeted than what's actually spent. That's absolutely correct. A lot of these have a huge cushion should we need to, spend a large amount under maintenance management, for example. We have that in the budget. But we typically, as you can see by the actuals, are not actually spending that much. Open space is lucky in that our budget is a little bit more flexible. We do have that everything rolling over at the end of the fiscal year. And so we're able to just kind of have a ballpark But then ultimately, if there's any shortfalls or overages, that's all just being either rolled over from another line item or ultimately rolled under undesignated. So we're very privileged in that way. And then your second question related to undesignated, the reason why it appears that those funds evaporated is because there's a process every year called augmentations where things have to be moved around and
Within
that
open
has not-
space or the department?
within our budget
Okay.
line items. So ultimately, that undesignated money needs to be moved through a process called augmentations each year, and that has not been done yet. Jen, am I on track here? Perfect. So a lot of times we're giving you what we know right now. But as the budget process moves along, we'll have more final numbers as we move towards May when the final budget is approved citywide. Jen, please add to that if I didn't meet the mark.
You did great, Lindsay. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Rec Director. So that undesignated account, we can't spend out of that directly, ever. We actually have to go through a process through the Internal Finance Committee or to the Board of Supervisors to ask to be able to spend that money directly. But I look at that, like Lindsay does, as kind of our savings account. So we save that extra money for future land acquisitions. Obviously, Buzzy's Ranch water rights we've been saving for years. And we're about ready to pull the trigger on spending that money, so we're really lucky. But we never would spend out of that account directly. So that's why you won't see that.
Well, so my question is, why was it budgeted in '24 and we don't have a budget for that in '26? And the other question, and it's just, I'm not into this, into the weeds, but do we expect to have $607,000 in salaries, or more like 300 or 290? And if we're only going to have between 280 or 290,000 in salaries, why do we budget 607 for this next year? Question.
I can take that. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So we did have a vacancy, one of their full-time vacancies, for a pretty long time. So that's why we are partially over and having a hard time filling that. We do have, we don't have a full staff right now. We have a full-time vacancy as well. We did have a promotion in our team to open space manager, Bob Tonseth. So that foreman position is filled, which was probably our second most expensive position on the open space team. So that's why we have that underage. And then we have a maintenance worker position that's vacant right now. So we won't fully spend that. But when we have a full team, we will expect to spend that amount.
That's all I have.
Carl? You're good? Sam, you good?
No, a couple questions. Okay, so for the toolcat purchase, I feel like I asked this last year too. What's the process for replacement of the current toolcat? Do you guys do a private sale for the one that you want to get replaced, or do you just dispose of it? Can you just walk me through that process?
Yeah, excellent question. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So within the department, we have kind of an equipment fleet tracking system. So we identify when something was purchased and then help kind of bleed that into the future of when that might need to be replaced. We don't always need to replace something right away. For example, the toolcat that we're looking to replace has been up for replacement for a few years, but we had been able to continue working with it, using it until recently when it became unusable. And so that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the equipment, whatever it may be able to be disposed of, and then I believe it may go to some sort of auction. In this case, it is dead, and so it would die where it is, and we'll be replacing it. But yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you. And let's see what else. Were there any large items on the budget that you needed or you wanted within the budget that didn't make it this year? Or it seems like, sorry, Keith. It seems like Keith had mentioned that question that everything seems to be budgeted exactly where you want it to be, and you have a healthy budget, and everything is relatively appropriate.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, everything from the previous year's budget that we had requested, we were able to fund that. This budget that we're talking about right now is still in draft form. You guys are one part of the process to get that approved. Ultimately, it will need to go through Board of Supervisors approval and all of that, which will happen this spring. So these are all what's in, at least what's proposed, like under that fiscal year 26 budget priorities. Those are tentative items. They're not approved yet, but we're working the process. But yeah, great question.
Thanks.
Aaron?
I don't have a question as much as I have a comment about, as a layperson, so you don't know my background, but I worked for 5 different agencies, 3 local agencies and 2 different state agencies. And I understand how it's difficult to understand the fiscal year budget process because it always splits between 2 years. But the actual budget process is interesting because it takes like 6 months prior to the July 1st date that the fiscal year actually starts on. So it goes through many iterations of staff massaging numbers, but what I wanted to say really was just to highlight how amazing the quality of life initiative is and was, and how much foresight Carson City had. You know, I grew up here in the 80s, and this happened well after I graduated from high school and moved away. So when I was a kid here, you could do anything you wanted to in open space because it was just open. But they really made huge inroads, you know, not for only for themselves, but ourselves and our children and our future grandchildren, to preserve open space in a way that we don't have to fight for general fund money, which is a big deal because normally in all the other departments, Public Works, I mean, you see you see the comments in the newspaper all the time about potholes and what are we gonna do about the streets and where's the money gonna come from? So I just think it's so amazing. And, you know, I'm sure, Jennifer, you get questions from neighboring communities. And I think that we might, as a board, that's an opportunity that we could potentially put on for future agendas, like to teach our neighbors how to do this, because not everyone is doing this. And, you know, people that we share our river with aren't doing this. So anyway, I just think it's important to not lose sight of how awesome that process is, and that you said open space gets 40% and Parks and Recs gets 60%, and that money never goes away. We get to save it, and we get to, you know, like you said, it compounds, and we get to use it for Buzzy's water rights. And how many years have you guys been saving that money? For a long time, right? Decades. So anyway, kudos to everybody.
Mary? No. I got a couple questions first, okay? If you have a line item and towards the end of the year, like I'm gonna keep using the same example, the Red House, and you've spent that account, can you change your line items just by a simple memo or something?
Great question. I was just learning about that today. So other than undesignated, which Jen spoke to, which requires IFC, Internal Finance Committee approval, within our budget, if for example, yeah, we're over on our maintenance management contract, but we haven't spent any under office supply rental, well, then we can move that funding into another line item within our
Is there a
various.
cap? Like 10,000 or 5,000 without asking, or you could just move it?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can find out.
Sweet.
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So we have Lindsay has a bottom line budget. So if, let's say the bottom line was $1 million and that was her budget, she just can't go over that dollar amount. So you can spend it from different items. We try to use those targets, those estimates that we have, but things do come up. And if it's over, we just have to go follow, you know, state purchasing and then the city's purchasing guidelines. So if there's a $10,000 item, we have to have so many quotes. If it's over $50,000, it has to come to the Board of Supervisors. If it's over $100,000 and it's a construction project, well, then we have to go to bid and there's prevailing wages and all those things. So it just depends on the dollar amount, but as long as we don't go over that bottom line, we're pretty good.
Sweet. So every one of these line items is a good guesstimate of what you expect, but if you need more or less, you can move it around every year. So, wow. That's very nice. So there's no reason that you have to be concerned too much if something doesn't quite work out right in any of these items, and that you need more money for the Red House. I know I keep throwing the Red House in there. So what a wonderful budget. I was looking to see how much staff is of the total. It looks like about half, I guess, huh? Staff takes about half of the total each year. So I'm confused by how you can put 4 million to the side and call it undesignated instead of like in the nonprofit world you call it restricted or something, and so instead of just undesignated. So it's your policy, and then that was the first time I ever heard that you can't even spend any of some of that money that's set aside in your budget. So I'm happy with this whole process, and you did a good presentation, and there were good questions. So. Denny, we got time for public comment before we make a motion?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry I didn't bring my little timer. Last time I brought it, people were embarrassed because they also had a timer going and
Yeah, I
mine.
know, but they didn't do it again tonight, so I go, okay.
Well, no, I really appreciated that, and I would have brought it had I known
You're
what,
not-
all right.
It's all right.
But the main thing for me is that I have a question because I don't have that line item deal in front of me. I did go over that part of the agenda as close as I could. I didn't see that there was a line item relating to the new equipment that would be required if you get into artificial turf. That equipment is not cheap. Is that in your line items for that? And is it appropriate to ask at this meeting? But it is something, you brought up a piece of equipment that's specific for certain uses. And I think that in this case, it's speculatory still. I mean, we could still determine not to go with artificial turf, which I would prefer. However, if it's a done deal, there's a huge amount of equipment that's going to go with that. And also, I've never quite determined whether or not the drainage is going to be part of the initial amount that's going towards or from the artificial turf's budget. So what is on the budget related to artificial turf now, if anything, as far as
Well, I
equipment?
didn't know there was any open space with artificial turf.
Well,
An open space that's under our charge. But
well, the problem is that they're bringing up equipment that also gets used at times in open space and at parks.
what is it?
That, well, I'm just saying, though, that there are exchanges, but this is a specific, and I'm asking, like, maybe I shouldn't ask this till I go to the parks meeting, but it's still wondering if it's on this at
Yeah,
all.
well, I would.
Does that conclude your public comment? I just want to make sure we don't get into discussion.
No, I'm
Oh,
not
I
getting- I'm
I
just
didn't want to direct it to
clarifying.
yeah, I
Question.
didn't want
I
to
can answer
direct
the
it to
question, though.
her because I'm asking you if
I
it's
know.
appropriate to have asked that
I'm just
question.
trying to find out if,
Yeah, so I'll let it go,
for
yes,
you
thank
to
you.
address that to somebody else besides us, so.
No, I have to, I'm sorry, I need to know if I can address it to you or that I wait for the parks.
I would wait for the parks.
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. There is no artificial turf expenses from the open space budget. They won't be maintaining it, any purchasing equipment for that, anything related to that for Centennial Park. The
Thank-
equipment is going to be purchased through a bond and as part of that project, but that's not under the purview of this committee. That's
Thank you
the
very
Parks and
much.
Recreation Commission.
Thank you.
We done, huh? Okay, so I bring it back for any more discussion or a motion for 5C. Budget.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the budget for fiscal year 2026 as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Mary's a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? No abstentions. Carries unanimous. Okay, no more fives. Let's go to 6. Staff updates for discussion only. Director's report. Updates regarding the department's projects, programs, facilities, and events, grants, status of recruitment for vacant positions, legislative update and Board of Supervisors action item. Jen.
Thank you. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. We do have 2 full-time vacancies right now, a crew coordinator. They primarily oversee inmates and direct park maintenance workers in our rights of way and throughout our park system. Sometimes they work with open space on certain projects. And then we have a park maintenance worker position for our open space team. You have a copy of the Board of Supervisors action items in your packet. Do you have any questions on those?
They're all over the place.
I
so,
know, we have a lot
You
of,
see
we have
you
a lot
to
of stuff,
filter
but
that,
we
yeah.
try to give you everything that the department does at the board level, just so you have a full understanding of what we have going on. And then I don't have any specific legislative updates for you right now. We're only in the second week of the legislature right now, but if there's any bills that you hear about or that you'd like me to look into, I'm happy to report back to you on those. Just send me an email, and we have a whole citywide effort tracking all of that. But I'm happy to look into anything that you'd like me to.
Did you get the inmates back at the old fee structure too?
Yes, the inmate, the bill at the last legislative session did not go through regarding the inmate payroll. I haven't seen anything so far on that, so we're doing okay, and we have inmates right now, so that's great.
Yes, yeah. Any questions from the right?
Thank
On
you.
the left? That was easy, Jen. We're not going to pick on you. That was for discussion only. I'm not going to hold public comment till I get through with the 3 of them. Okay, Danny, thank you. 6B, Trails Coordinator Report. Greg, we're going to put you to work here. Activities related to trail projects managed by the Carson City Parks and Recreation Open Space Department, including trail-related grants, programs, and events.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Greg Bergeron, for the record, Trails Coordinator. So yeah, we have a lot going on trails-wise in Carson City right now, and Lindsay touched on most of those when she was giving her presentation, but I'll give you a little bit more detail, especially for some of the newer members. So the Carson River Trail System Phase 3, Prison Hill West, that is a $2.4 million grant funded through the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act, or SNPLMA. And that project created, and well, some of it's done now. So they created a new trailhead at Coons Lane that has reopened. It created a safe street crossing at Edmonds and Koontz. So there's the rectangular flashing beacons. They're at a level so a pedestrian or an equestrian can hit the button and turn on the flashing beacons. And then the third component of that is approximately a 2.5 mile accessible trail from the Coons Lane Trailhead down to the south end of Prison Hill. And by accessible, I mean a trail that is accessible to persons of all ages and abilities. It's good for mobility devices, adaptive mountain bikes, hikers, mountain bikers, dog walkers, runners, the whole gambit. So at least a third of that trail has been completed now, and the feedback we're getting so far has been very good. I'm up there all the time, and I talk to people, and the people are coming, and they seem to be liking it. So we're really proud of what we've been of that project, and that'll be completed, as Lindsay mentioned, should be completed around the end of April. We're going to do a grand opening celebration on June 14th. You all will be getting an invite to that very soon, and so we hope you can attend that. And then moving on to the Riverview Park Trailhead project, that's a $2.3 million SNPLMA grant. We received the funding agreement for that in June of last year, and then we needed to complete the the Section 106 cultural clearances through the BLM, and that was just finished very recently. And so we are now moving forward with the process to select a design, engineering, and construction management consultant for that project. And hopefully we can get that done this spring and start moving towards construction next year. Another project that we're really excited about, as Lindsay mentioned, is the Carson River Trail. So that is a project funded through the Recreational Trails Program. And it included 2 components. One is to repair a section of trail what we call the Eagle Creek segment, which connects the linear or the Empire Ranch Trail with the trails in Riverview Park, and that was badly damaged through flooding. That has been completed. We fixed that trail, and so now we're working on rebranding of several segments of trail along the Carson River. It's 5 miles of trail between Morgan Mill and the Mexican Dam, and we're rebranding that as the Carson River Trail. And so we came up with a logo for that, which was the draft for that logo was produced by our very own Erin Larson, our volunteer coordinator. We thought she did an amazing job. We had it cleaned up a little bit by a graphic artist, and then we also had that artist create a Carson River Trail map, which you see here. We have included that onto 8 4-foot-long panels that we're going to be placing at all the intersections along that trail, and we have those panels ready to go. So our maintenance staff will be installing those in the next few weeks or so. And then we're also going to be adding a few interpretive panels along there. One of them is going to be talking about the history of the Mexican Dam. We're going to be talking about the Western Pond Turtle on one of them, and then there's one of them that the Washoe Tribe is helping with. So that's a project that we're very excited about, and we should be finishing that up this year. Next, I wanted to mention some slight trail reroutes in the upper Dead Truck Canyon area. Paul Sinnott, who received an award from OSAC at the last meeting. He and his crew from Muscle Powered have been working on some reroutes for the upper section of Dead Truck Canyon, which is really, really steep and erosive, and so that's looking a lot better. And then when they're done with that, they're going to be moving on to continuing the Odyssey Trail, which will eventually be a 5-mile loop on Prison Hill. And then I know that there was some conversation about the rehab we're doing at the Coons parcel, and I have some photos here showing what we've done so far. Near the Coons Lane trailhead on those upper 2 photos, on the left-hand side, you can see there was that was a horribly disturbed area, kind of an area that was driven on. It was a road that was created. I guess you would call it a social road. It wasn't one that was ever built for any purpose. And then on the right-hand side, you can see how it looks after our maintenance crew did the magic, which includes scarification, vertical mulching, which is basically planting brush, sagebrush, and things like that, and not so that with the intent that they're going to grow, but that just to visually make it disappear. And then it was reseeded. There was a volunteer effort led by Aaron and Marina, our natural resource specialist, and they did on a Saturday. That area was all reseeded, and then on the lower photo, you can see another area near the Coons Lane trailheads, similarly before and after, and the change there. Let's see. Did I miss? No, I didn't miss anything. Okay, one other thing I wanted to mention, it was brought up, the Trails Challenge for the 2025, and we do have a couple of, I guess, unique inclusions this year that are they're not your typical trail. The Stewart Indian School Trail and the Kit Carson Trail, which both have the opportunity to take people on historic tours. You can learn a lot about the Washoe Tribe and the Stewart Indian School on that trail, and then the Kit Carson Trail, which is the one that goes through the historic downtown Carson City. That one could even be driven if one were to choose to do that. So anyway, I encourage you all to check out the 2025 Trails Challenge. If you're really up for a challenge, the Capella Tahoe Trail is on there, as well as the Aquatic Trail. So yeah, a lot going on this year, and with that, I'll take any questions that the committee may have.
I just wanted to comment on the Coons Lane trailhead and the new loop trail that's coming there.
Mhm.
The only thing I can say is, wow.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it is amazing. It was so amazing that I started to laugh when I was up there. And I also wanted to say, if Paul Sinnott is watching and all of the good muscle-powered folk, thank you so much for that dead truck section, because I have fallen on that hill multiple times on my bike. And the older I've gotten, I've gotten off. Now I have to walk. And I was up there about a month ago on my bike, and I was blown away. It's like, there's a new trail. I can actually ride it without fear. So really just kudos to the staff and Muscle Powered. Just fabulous. Look forward to the next sections.
You can put that on the kiosk panel that Mary likes the trail. That's right. That creates a standard. How about this side, Keith?
I was going to say, great job. My wife and I were walking on the Coons Trail the other day, and when the freeway was going through and they were digging that out, she was pretty amazed by that. She goes, "But this, I know this isn't the same thing, but this is amazing." I said, "This is not quite the same scale, but yeah, it's really good." Question, and I might have some neighbors who would wonder this, but I know that there's places along these sections of these trails around Prison Hill that are trailheads, and some that might be access points but not considered trailheads. For example, I think like at Bennett, is there going to be an access there that somebody can get onto that trail? Because it's a ways from, say, the Gentry Bennett intersection up to the trail. And will there be improvements on that spur, or is it just going to be left as a single track the way it is? And then how will that connection, if there is a connection, or won't there be a connection in other places?
No, that's a great question. And the identified in the Prison Hill Master Plan are certain neighborhood access points. Bennett is one of them. They're access points that don't have parking. They're not designated trailheads, but we know that they're access points that neighbors use. The local residents, and so several of them are designated, and they will remain, and they were included in the planning for this particular project, not to improve those trails per se, but to allow access from them onto the main trail. So yeah, they're going to remain. There are other access points that we have kind of, I guess, formalized after the fact, simply because they're trails that have developed over the years by neighbors. They're well used. We're just going to leave them. And so rather than having people just finding random ways to get to the trail, we're actually trying to formalize some of those single track trails. And then our maintenance crew in two cases has actually come up and put down some road base, kind of like a little road base ramp from the trail up onto, from a single track trail up onto the main trail. So we're trying to provide those opportunities that people, or continue to provide those opportunities that people have utilized over the years, and we don't want to, we don't want to change things too much. So a lot of what we're doing with the rehab in the Coons parcel is we're getting rid of some of the redundant roads, the old roads, and we're decommissioning those. In other cases, we're taking those old roads and we're doing road to trail conversion. So instead of having a 10 or 12 or 15 foot wide road, we're taking it down to 4 feet. So it's more of a single track. So the neighbors don't have to worry that they're going to lose access, but we're trying to improve the aesthetics and provide more opportunities for Carson Valley monkey flower and other flowers to thrive.
I have one, it's not related, but when there are volunteer opportunities, for example, like seeding or whatever might come up, how's the best way for public generally to know that there are opportunities for that? And are they open to the public? Would it be something that if you had a church group of youth or whatever you wanted to do a service project, they could say, hey, we're seeding out here with Aaron and we're going to do whatever. Is there a way to tap into that opportunity?
That's a great question. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So our volunteer coordinator, Erin Larson, she tries to get the word out in as many different ways as possible. So we have our Facebook, which is a great place to look for upcoming events. At whenever we do our staff updates, I'll include any events that we have currently planned, so you can check them out there. If you have volunteered previously, you are added to basically a listserv, and then those folks are notified of potential opportunities. And then if there's a group out there, like a church group or something that is interested in coordinating something, they can contact Erin Larson, and she can help either create an opportunity for them or help match them with something that might be upcoming. So
I might also mention that sometimes there are opportunities outside of our department, like Muscle Powered has, as Charles would know, Trash Mob. At least once a month, they'll do on a Saturday usually from 8 to 9 or 9 to 10. It's like 1 hour on a Saturday, come out and pick up trash somewhere. This coming Saturday at the Coons Lane Trailhead, and I believe it's 8 to 9, or maybe it's 9 to 10. There's it's in the paper. It's been in the Van Appeal for quite a few weeks, and it's on the Muscle Party website. But they'll be doing a cleanup of. There's an area where there's a whole bunch of broken glass and stuff near the Coons Lane Trailhead, and anybody's welcome to come out to that.
And Aaron's promised to put the board on that mailing list too. Not mailing, that's the wrong term, email list. So I don't know how the new people, maybe Lindsay's writing it down on the pad. Maybe she'll make sure Aaron has the 2 new names on the list. Charles, you have anything?
I just wanted to reiterate just the great work there at Prison Hill. I had stopped going basically the end of last summer. I couldn't get past the ditch of death there under
The ditch of death.
below the water tank, unless you want to fire up a 4x, you know. And it's just, that's the most work I've ever seen done that fast, you know, and so stylish. So great.
We just gave that gentleman an award that does a lot of that work up there. So Paul sent it.
Man, beautiful. Yeah, I'm going back.
Sam, have anything?
Yeah. As always, Greg and Lindsay, great job. Can't say thank you enough for what you guys do and put together. Question and kind of a statement. So with the Carson River Trail rebrand, I think what you did and what Aaron did looks great. Have you considered partnering with Visit Carson City to say, hey, here's what we've put together and here's the new rebrand of this trail? Because I think as people move into the area, they may not be aware of all the different trails that connect, along the river. And I think it's a great opportunity to get the name out and get the fresh name out there to everyone in the community.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and we actually work very well, very cooperatively with Visit Carson City, and we work in ways that that help them and also benefit us. For example, there was a time when they were really marketing the waterfall trail, and the traffic up there was too heavy, and so they worked closely with us to kind of spread the love a little bit to some other parts of Carson City, and what they have found, I think, is that we have a whole plethora of trails within our community that are very marketable and
World class.
and so we do work very well with them to do that kind of thing, and we will definitely they will be well aware of the Carson River Trail, for example. So yeah.
I am so happy to see you call it the Carson River Trail, because I just did a survey and people have no idea where they're at. They didn't know if they're on Buzzies or Mexican Dam or Empire. So I love seeing that
Silver
being
Saddle.
called one name, Carson River Trail. And you'll just have to educate people to know now that not to call it 6 different names and not know where they're at.
So just to follow up on that comment, so it's going to be the Carson River Trail, but so people can identify where they are. It's divided up into segments. So the Empire Ranch segment, and there's a sign for that. It'll say Carson River Trail, Empire Ranch segment, and it's got the length and and all the particulars about the trail. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the only other thing I want to say, and which I had spoke to you about before the meeting, was that road from, what the heck's a paved road that takes you up to Kuntz, up to the trailhead? What's the name of that paved road there?
That's Coons Lane.
No, not that one.
It's like off of Colorado Street.
That's Colorado?
Well, yeah, it starts at Colorado Street.
I'm talking
goes
about the
up.
ring road that goes along the freeway that takes you all the way to the tribe.
It's Edmonds. It's Edmonds.
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 Edmonds Drive. I watched the Subaru park at the bottom because they wouldn't take the road up to your trailhead, and it's insane. And I wonder if there's anything that we can do to ask folks, because you're done, and it's wonderful. But that access road up there, like I said, a crummy set of radials could get ripped pretty easy in those rock piles that they use for their drainage control.
That is the segment I was referring to when I was talking about Kuntz Lane. It's like the extension of that. So I wasn't asking if we were going to doing improvements on Kuntz Lane or even the approach from Kuntz off of Edmonds. But yeah, that section
It's just terrible. And,
is there, although it's a lot better. They put some cobble and some riprap in those drainage cutoffs.
but those cobbles are perfectly sharp-edged radial
Well,
getters.
I don't know. They did a pretty good.
Well,
job.
you're
I
an
think they-
engineer, so
I think
you
they
can
rolled them
argue
down.
that.
I drove up.
What kind of car you
it
got?
might work.
I have a Ferrari. I'm not taking my Ferrari up there. No, so I would just like to, if it helps, how we could encourage the transportation folks to work more on that road. Because people are going around it, the rocks. They're going to end up, the road's going to be about 100, it'll be a landing strip for airplanes when they get done, because they're going around all that riprap rock, because nobody wants to drive through it. Is there anything that we could do? And you may not have an answer for that.
Again, yeah, so Kuntz Lane was not eligible for the Stimplema grant part of it. So, and the riprap was put in by the contractor so that his trucks could more easily access the construction site.
Well, they're water bars too.
And it filled in some of the water bars that a smaller car wouldn't have been able to get over without bottoming out. So it's better than it was. And our hope is that, like I said, as budgets allow, that perhaps Public Works could make some kind of improvements to that road in the future.
How's that working now for the chain of command? I mean, is like, you call them every day, or stop by their office every day, or send them candy, or whatever it takes to, how does that work?
That is not something that we could ever contribute to from our capital budget. If it were, it has to be from SNPLA. I don't even know how you guys pronounce that word, but in our carryover or undesignated.
That's not open space. It's not an open space purview.
Okay, so
We can't spend money from open space on roads.
Okay, gotcha.
Can I clarify that? Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. If it's a road that leads to a trailhead or to our open space, it would be appropriate.
Oh, so there is an opportunity.
We don't like it, but we try to find other funding if possible.
That's,
We need people to safely be able to get to trailheads. So we have done some road improvements like Kings Canyon. We do maintenance every year on some of those roads.
you guys don't have a road grader or that kind of equipment yet. Because it's like an island. It's really nice when you get up there.
We're friends with Public Works too. Sometimes
Well,
they
whatever
help
you-
us out when they
If
can.
this board can do anything, Jen, and you can think of anything, let us know that we could act as a body to, in a very friendly, nice way, ask them if they'd please do that.
Absolutely. They're really good to us, and I think we work well with them. But they do have way more work than they have staff, just like we do. So we try to be respectful of that.
Thank you.
Agreed. And we have had the conversation with Public Works, and they're aware of it, that road and the condition of it. And so maybe we can do something in the coming year to work a little closer together between the two departments.
Answer me one more question. When you go to that trailhead, you drive by the kiosk in the bathroom, and you, just before you get the turn where you make the sharp turn, the fence zags out. What is that fence zagged out like that for? You're gonna put,
So, no, I know what you're talking about. It's down, there's like a little triangle
yeah,
there.
because it's like.
Yeah,
I
because
almost
there's,
hit it.
so, yeah, I've had my wife asked me that question too. So that trailhead, when you just get past the outhouse or the vault toilet, that's supposed to be angled parking for cars, and then it turns into just road after
Right.
that. And so so
That's-
that little piece there is to encourage
got
people to
you.
go back onto the road and not park in the middle of the road. And I know it's a little bit confusing, but we are going to put a whole bunch more split rail fencing in that trailhead, and I think maybe that will define it a little
or
bit better.
parking
And maybe,
bumper thing on the ground so they'll know that's a parking.
yeah, well, we're
spot.
going to have split rail there, and I think it'll be a little bit better defined, and maybe we need to have, maybe we could put bumpers or a sign or something to angle
Something.
parking.
It's nothing that's any big deal to distract from the fact that that's a wonderful facility. All right, I'm done picking on you. So, Denny,
I have one more thing real quick.
okay.
Besides the ditch of doom is gone, and I thought that was awesome. That right there is like, you can just drive
I
your car
love that.
right up
I'd
there,
like to see a
Mark.
sign for the ditch of doom, boy. I love that.
Death, it's actually, but that's all right.
I wanted to
death.
let Sam know, and I'm sure that the city everyone knows, but last year I ran into the wonderful people that do Wild Nevada for the PBS program that's on, and they were filming on Prison Hill, and that's where I ran into them. And that segment just ran last month. If you didn't see it,
They just
Check it
did the Ash to,
No, it was the capital to Tahoe.
they just did that.
so I thought that was really exciting to see that group down there.
Yeah, I was hoping I'd see you guys there. Chelsea got in on that somehow.
Chelsea and Pete.
Yeah, I saw Pete too. Yeah, I thought that they should have been picking Greg or Lindsay up.
Well, realize that the Capitol of Tahoe Trail is built almost entirely on U.S. Forest Service land and state park land, and that project, while the city and open space definitely was a huge supporter and had a lot to do with it, Muscle Powered was the initiator and kind of the
Yeah, I'm just trying to
group
get that
that got
open
it done,
space
so.
patch in the shop.
No, I know, but I want to give credit where credit is due, and
No, I
and that-
understand that. I
that-
just, yeah. You're totally right. I understand that, but they were.
Won a national award.
Okay, so Denny, you've been raising your hand, so I'm going to bring you up after this, but no, you can sit there. Now I can't let you just stalk in the middle of the meeting, Denny. So I'm holding your public comment so that when you're raising your hand, I won't forget you. So go ahead. Yep, you got 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing up the strange situation we've got with that Kuntz trailhead. I can't go up there very well in my vehicle, and I have to get as close to things as I can right now. So thank you for bringing that up. It just amazes me. You spend millions of dollars to put a restroom up there. You have a sign that suggests that we should get up there, and then you don't have it set so it's very easy. So I appreciate that was brought up. I really think that the new logo is very well done. Erin Larson did a great job, and however they cleaned it up, she had a great concept, and it's great. As far as my maybe getting mixed up with parks and open space and public works is because they do all work together at times. And so if I'm asking if a piece of equipment is shared, it's not because I'm just loco, okay? They do. They're known to work together and when things come up. But I am concerned about the fact that we're losing so much of our sage. And you are involved in open space. And I really want you to be encouraged to look and see whatever is BLM, whatever is state, is up for grabs soon. And I'm not talking a couple years. It will be. It will either go to our developing more homes, which we probably do need, and I'll talk to planning about that. But we need to look ahead to figure out where the monarchs go, figure out where well, right now we don't have a wandering jack butterfly deal. I wouldn't know where they went anymore. I don't even think they show up anymore. But the deal is, for me, we've got to think ahead of where we're going to preserve, what we're going to be able to have money to observe and keep track of and protect. And we've got to start now. And with the federal government cutting back, we're going to have less grants. State's going to have to pull back because of those issues. And so we as a city have a pivotal spot here. And I would like to have it more into the nature's form of things. I don't happen to feel highly of Prison Hill Road, which is what it is to me. And that's sad, but I didn't want it to change from the natural, but we had a drainage issue. So they took care of two things with one stone, well, with a lot of rock, which is another issue for me. But the main thing is I appreciate your being involved, but I really think our focus has to be on not only maintaining, which I think open space is doing their best to do through you, and the parks are trying to do for themselves in open space, but that montage of effort has to be coordinated to a point where we have nature in first, because we can't survive without it. We may be able to build up, but you look at Mexico City, they built up so bad they didn't have any water. They had no place for that water to settle in. Just ran right off the hills. We have fire issues with red flag issues. We have things like that that I don't think we're really addressing as much as we should. So as open space, we've got a lot to consider, and it's beautiful, and I don't want to lose it. Thank you very much.
Right on 3 minutes. Thanks, Denny. That was a general information session. Now we go to the next one, and I guess Lindsay's filling in for that one, huh? What did I just do with my agenda? There it is. The 6C, Senior Natural Resource Specialist and Open Space Manager Report. Activities related to projects managed by Open Space, including updates within the Carson River Corridor, Marina Lovejoy and Lindsay Boyer, but there's no Marina, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So just a few updates I wanted to share with you related to kind of natural resource and planning side of things. So I mentioned earlier related to the Carson River Master Plan. So we're still very much in our outreach and engagement component of the project. So we'll be hosting our second stakeholder workshop in conjunction with the Carson Water Subconservancy District Watershed Forum on March 4th. And so that will be great. Those are all of our technical experts that we've invited to the table to help inform the plan. And then there is a public open house scheduled on April 30th. It says location TBD, but we've since finalized location will be here at the community center in the theater lobby. And that will be an opportunity for anyone from the public who's interested in the Carson River to come out and kind of see what we've been working on as far as the plan is concerned. Specifically, we'll be reviewing sort of the draft plan themes, goals, and directives that were all identified through both the public survey as well as a stakeholder survey that we've done. So that will be forthcoming, and would love to see you guys there. I spoke to the Buzzies Ranch water rights acquisition a bit already, but just wanted to give a little bit more information about that required due diligence, the water study and water report. So the water report is basically kind of a title report, if you will, related to the water rights. And that is anticipated to be completed this month. And then we can provide that draft over to SNPLMA for their review. And then the water study is more a boots on the ground hydrological and botanical study to kind of confirm the acreage that we will be applying the water to, and to be able to support how much water needs to be purchased for that area. And that needs to be completed during irrigation season, which starts April 1st and goes through October. So we're going to be completing that study this fall, and we'll be providing updates related to that effort as well as the ongoing acquisition as we go along. I spoke a bit about our revegetation projects. These are things that we were working on kind of this fall and winter. We try to pick that time of year because here in the Great Basin, that's when we have the moisture coming in. Seeds are able to kind of overwinter, capitalize on whatever winter precip we do receive, and then hopefully start germinating in the spring. So just a few projects that we completed seeding for. The Kings Canyon Trailhead, there was just a few disturbed areas there where we wanted to augment what had been completed as part of the trailhead project. So we went in and did a little seeding there. Moffett Open Space, there was a very small fire this last year. We went in and seeded that area. Lone Mountain Trail, same thing, small fire. We went in and seeded that. And then we've been talking a lot about the Coons parcel, and that's definitely our biggest re-veg project, and we're excited to watch that change. There's a photo here, so you can see the volunteers that came out and helped with that seeding effort. And as we have additional volunteer projects, we'll make sure that you guys are in the loop, whatever they may be. Carson Valley Monkey Flower has come up today. I just wanted to provide a brief update. We're following this closely. We're watching for updates. So there was a petition that was received by the Fish and Wildlife suggesting that this should be listed as a threatened species. The Fish and Wildlife had a certain period of time to review that. And then they have come back and determined that there is more information to be gathered. So they have about a 12-month review period in which they would seek more information and learn more and do more research. So at this time, that's where we're at. There has been no formal designations associated with the plant yet. So we'll be watching and providing updates as we can. And as I mentioned, the staff report here will always include past or upcoming events and activities. These are department-wide, but just kind of gives you a sense of some of the different either volunteer activities or education opportunities, or as the park rangers have events, I'll include them here. Want to highlight the Escape from Prison Hill race. That's always a fun one. Greg and I will be running this year, so hope to see you guys there as well.
Oh, yeah?
Mhm.
Are you going to wear your butterfly outfit?
I think that'd slow me down.
That's great.
Yeah.
Participate.
So with that, I'd take any questions.
Anybody on the left? No comments? On the right? That picture is really cool. It looks like that's an asteroid or something coming into Earth there. That's phenomenal to shoot straight into the sun and get those kind of colors. That was, I guess, a fancy phone picture, I guess. It looks like it's heading for that car up there in the parking lot, though.
Cell phone. Any more?
That's a great report. Thank you. There's no motion on that, so now we're going to move to 7. There we are. Update from the Foundation for Carson City Parks and Rec.
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So the foundation is not here tonight to present, but they did provide us with that update. And so if there's any questions, let us know and we can either answer them or relay them.
Well, Aaron asked a question earlier. Could you let's start that discussion over again.
I was curious if staff or any of the committee had any ideas on any projects or anything that we could partner with the Parks and Rec Foundation. They're interested in working together, and just wanted to see if you guys had any ideas.
I'll put the bike park up for any partnership you want. We'd like to, Dan Thornton of Muscle Powered Board is spearheading the Carson City Bike Park project at Centennial Park. And we will take any help we can get.
Do you have anything specific?
Money? Yeah, that's not gonna
Sometimes
happen.
it's easy to
But,
recruit with.
no, but I'm serious. I mean, if you want to put your name right next to that, that's absolutely fine with us.
Jennifer, is that an open space project?
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. It's probably something department-wide, to be honest, because we are working on an update for the Centennial Park Master Plan. We are planning on bringing updates at our joint meeting for this board as well, because we do have trailhead improvements and access to BLM open space and some trail components. And there's definitely some wetlands and wildlife considerations at Centennial Park and things that overlap. We have a lot of drainage needs. We do have other parts, but there's definitely a cooperative effort for that. What I'd like to do is to move forward on the master plan and get that through before we actually select that as a project, because we want the board to approve it. So that way it has their seal of approval first.
And maybe could
So I think it's a
you-
potential project.
Okay. Could you maybe, Jennifer, explain a little bit more clearly to us what the foundation's role is? I know they're a 501c3 and that they would potentially be able to apply for grants for these type of projects. Is that true? And that how would the partnership look with Open Space or Parks and the foundation?
Sure. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So the Foundation for Carson City Parks is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. They're really working to kind of gain some momentum, increase their membership, and have more clear kind of roles and responsibilities moving forward, and they're trying to do that. I really appreciate their effort. Their president is Mike Raponi. He's the new president. He's really trying to work with Dennis Peterson, their vice president, on a variety of projects. One thing they've taken on is our youth scholarship program, which affects everybody in the community. So they've raised a lot of funding to help support youth in the community be in any of our programs that cost money. Any ranger programs, our youth programs, ski programs, our bike workshops, you name it, anything that youth. And I think that's something that is across the board for the department, which is great. They do have other specific projects where they're basically the fiscal agent, and then you have like a grassroots effort from community members that want to take that on. A certain project, they apply to the foundation, it becomes a project, and then they hold the funds so someone doesn't have to create their own nonprofit. I think there's a lot of different project ideas, like Lindsay mentioned earlier, our community cleanup trailer, the Rotary, and I think Home Depot is going to partner with us on that as well, is to rebrand that and get a new wrap for that trailer, and then increase our tool cache that's in that for the betterment of the community. And we use that in open space, we use it in rights of way, we use it in parks. So it's something that really benefits everybody, which is wonderful. I think what we could do is if you have any, project ideas, you don't have to decide right now, is just think about it and we can report back. I go to the Parks Foundation meeting mostly every month. I can't always make it, but if not, I usually send a staff person, or I know you go regularly as well, which is great. My goal is it would be great to have the Parks Commission, the Cultural Commission, and Open Space Advisory Committee all being 100% members of the Parks Foundation, to just show our support for that foundation, because their sole purpose is to support our department, and that includes open space.
And they're really small.
They are
have
small,
very
but I
few
think
people.
there's
They're
so
mighty,
much
but they're-
potential.
yes.
They have so much potential, and I think there's a good purpose. And now that they have some really good direction and good leadership, I think now's the time to really see that. You'll see, like, obviously they had a written report in the packet. They're going to try to have a presence more often and really be on the forefront of everyone's mind, which is, I think, the right thing to do.
Yes. And that's a great idea. Is the
Oh, and
youth
to answer your
scholarships-
grant question, is we do have an understanding with them. So we agreed on some grant guidelines. So we can, a lot of times for grant applications, you need to either be a government agency or a nonprofit. So for those that we couldn't apply for, when we needed a fiscal agent for a nonprofit, they've agreed to be that applicant. Our staff would primarily write the grant, they would review it, and they would sign it and submit it up to a certain dollar amount.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so there's definitely opportunities for funding.
Yeah, and the volunteer, like you said, purchasing tools and youth scholarships for the ranger programs. If there's any other kinds of volunteer opportunities that you or Aaron Larson could maybe recommend, I could pass that information along, because I know they're already working on the youth scholarships, so that would be easy for them to segue into that.
Oh, go ahead, Sam.
No, you go ahead, Mary. Yeah.
I don't know if this would be something that they could do or would want to do, but it would be awesome as a fundraiser to spearhead another epic ride and put that money into all of these programs.
So just a question. So for the disc golf course that we have, is that on open space land or what type of land is that on?
It is.
Lindsay Boyer for the record, that's under Parks Management.
Parks management. I just think of that. You know, I love that course. Many people love that course. It's recognized across our state and beyond. Are there any opportunities to expand on that? That's the only course that I'm aware of in Carson City. We have a lot of areas that could potentially be identified as a second course. It seems to be pretty low maintenance, at least from my perspective, but I could be wrong. And it seems to bring people together from all ages. You know, I would love to support that.
I can expand on that one. So Carson Ridge Disc Golf Park does follow under the parks purview, but there's obviously a lot of natural resource management. We have trail components. I know Greg helps out all the time with that. We need trail crossings, and there's a lot of kind of crossover with that. We do have about $5,000 budgeted this year for regular maintenance for that facility, and we worked with volunteers on that project as well. And then right now we have the 18-hole course, and then we have the 9-hole beginner. We're working on updating the master plan for that because we really don't have a true plan. But there is desire to expand that and do some other projects there. So we'll make sure that we include you as part of that process. But as far as the foundation goes, they do have a project. So they manage all of the hole sponsorships for us, which is great. So they hold all that funding, and they'll contribute to bag tags or programs events or any maintenance projects that we might need, and they'll help contribute to that. So they already have that location as a project.
Thanks.
Well, plus they got Greg on the board, who is the first advocate for building that whole facility. And he actually should be personally very happy with himself because he was the main driver of that program entirely.
Well done.
And he's a great guy, actually. I was hoping that also, while you're thinking of projects, thinks of ways that the nonprofit can generate funds through some program in the open space. Now, the rim trail had some options where we could put benches in at the trailheads, not on the trail, but on the trailheads. And that the Forest Service or the parks, like state parks, would allow us to take the money for that. And so it might cost them $2,500 for a bench, and it's only a $200 bench, but the money goes to the foundation. So I don't know if Jennifer's worked details with that yet, to look for opportunities for them to gather funds while they're in ways that, like memorials, or that's Adopt on a Mile, Adopt Vistas. I mean, there's all these things you could sit and think about that parks would allow them to generate your income from that.
We did approve a memorial policy, and we talked about that. And staff is revising a brochure, and then we were going to send it to the Parks Foundation to see if they still wanted to participate in that. They could hold funds. I think people are more apt to donate or contribute if it's going to a private nonprofit organization. So we're definitely looking at that as well.
Because that really strengthens the relationship when you have both are helping out. That way.
Absolutely. So people could donate, they could do a memorial bench even, or for something else, and then, we can order it and install it. So it's a good partnership.
Well, your work program has places in there where they could adopt some parts of that too. So like, I don't know if you consider Saddle Ranch open space. I kind of do, but maybe it isn't. But and there's already an organization in place, but that doesn't mean somebody else can't fundraise for that.
I think it could cover anywhere in our entire park system. So parks, trails, or open space.
Well, I think that's exciting what I've seen how when I was going to meetings, there wasn't the same action that's going on right now. So I'm glad to see you're going, Aaron. And you're not one to not have a voice with that group. So thank you for being part of that.
You're welcome.
I see great things, Aaron.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Okay, we're getting there. I'm going to find what I did with my agenda again. I hid it right here. 7A. Okay, now we're at future agenda items. And our next meeting is with Parks and Rec, if I remember right, and that was a big agenda. Does anybody remember that? And did you have any comments or anything you want on the agenda? Or feedback? on the next agenda. I'm trying to find it so I can see it again.
If we don't have an item now, but something comes up, what's the process for getting something onto the agenda and how much before the meeting?
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So, yeah, at any time, if you have a question or want to see if something might be appropriate for a meeting, you can email myself and CC Mark, and it may be something we put on a, earmark for a future. It might be something we can slip in at that time. It might be something that maybe isn't appropriate for an agenda item, but we can discuss in some other way. So just communication with us would be the way.
Well, I have a question regarding when I was like, oh no, we don't spend open space money on trails or roads. And you said, well, we could. Is that something we could put on the agenda to discuss that and see if is that something we'd like to move forward with, or how does that work?
Do you want to talk about it in general, or is there a specific project you have in mind?
Well, that Kuntz Trail, that specific project.
We could, right now I could just tell you that's on BLM land. There is an easement on that location. So we do have to sort of tread lightly with that because we are not the ultimate owner of that property.
Oh, okay.
We have our trailhead above it and we have public access easement up there, but I don't know how much we would want to spend with that. With the lands bill, if that ever went through, it would go to private development, just those 6 parcels right there, and they would have to improve it, and it wouldn't cost the city any money.
Right.
It would be off that development. So I think there's potential options, but there's nothing really for that location right
Okay.
now. But there's a water easement because there's a water tank up there. So our public works department's really involved with, anything that needs to be done on there. So I think we have options that way without a
Okay.
financial hit to the open space program.
Well, I had another question about, I asked you about that previously about the hazard mitigation update. Could we put that on the agenda to see if that's a potential way to maybe preserve open space through that?
Sure, I can talk to our emergency manager about that. I did pass on your question, and he sent it to the consultant that's working on that plan about including the Superfund site.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next meeting isn't with Parks and Rec.
The next one is not.
No, I agree.
Well, so then I was thinking a little bit about the discussion we had with regard to grants and federal funding. Would it be possible to try to get a summary or a synthesis of where we feel like we are? I work in that arena, and I know what happened on the Monday when it said from the Office of Management and Budget said, stop. And then the day later said, forget it. But I guess what I would be looking for is, do we know anything more? Is there anything we can do and have a report that says, okay, here are the grants that we feel are under contract. Are they safe or are they not? Is there something we can do to kind of determine where some of those project grants will be or where they might be landing as things move forward? Is that a possibility? I know it could be a lot of work, and it's something I'd be willing to help with and dive into and see if we could get a report on where some of that grant.
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So, yeah, we can certainly bring a grant update. The work plan, kind of outlined that. And then at the end of the year, we do an annual report, and that kind of goes into our grants as well. As far as like their current status or how in jeopardy they could be, we can provide updates as we know.
Yeah, just if there's a way to know if the administration is targeting certain projects, we think, oh, that's one that's going to be in the scope, and this one's in the bullseye. I don't even know if that's something we should be considering with that entire work program and all those grants. Are there some of those that are high probability, opportunities?
Yeah.
I think it makes more sense to go on the joint meeting because Parks and Rec has the same issues as we do.
Well, I didn't want to take up time in that meeting for something
Well,
like that.
no, I meant the discussion about what action can we take legally as a board to support Carson City and those grants is all. But I'm just preparing us. There's no way anybody's gonna know. I mean,
No,
nobody knows.
I don't think
day
we'll
to
know,
day.
but if we have any updates, we can include that in our reports. It could be in my report, it could be Lindsay's or Greg's as appropriate, and let you know ahead of time.
That would be good.
I still think we could look at how our function is in helping support Carson City if we do lose anything. How that happens politically.
It would be a recommendation likely to the Board of Supervisors, and then, we do have a lobbyist. We have a local lobbyist and a federal lobbyist as well.
Well, then maybe we just put it on the agenda and almost a standing agenda item. How are the grants doing?
I have legislative items under my report. It's listed, so.
Because the state was gonna be looking at their stuff too now, so. And then Greg, where on the agenda is the item that you and I talked about on the trails?
That will be at the joint meeting in June.
Okay, so is that the one that says trail and maintenance overview? Okay, thank you. Any other questions on future agenda items? Because that's, okay, great. So the next meeting has minimal so far, so it might be a short meeting next time. So sometimes, are those any of those two timely?
Excuse me. Typically, we always bring the Horse Creek Ranch item in April. We do the monitoring in the fall, and then April just makes sense because February is usually a loaded meeting. The budget update is always at that meeting as well because we're kind of clipping along through the budget process. Certainly, if there's other items that come up between now and then, we'll bring them. So the joint meeting right now is looking a little heavy, so there may be something we peel off there, but also they're all important items, so it
Yeah, I was
shifts
just
over
referring,
time.
if we
but-
get down to deadline, we got 2 items on the agenda that.
Oh, if we would cancel?
Right.
I think because we do have those 2 items slated, we would likely proceed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And between now and then, we might have some other things to talk about. Okay, so is the end of discussions on the future agenda items? I think so. So it brings us to, I gotta say it right out of the word. Oh, I put it away. Open Space Advisory Committee, future agenda items is done 8A. Now we're at public comments. Before we adjourn.
Denny French, thank you. Just a little bit about what I heard, possibility on the discourse expansion. Some WNC individuals have expressed interest in having some of their area up there utilized. The next thing is, thank to Ms. Budge for bringing up the fact that there may be development along that Kuntz area in the BLM land. And I think that reason we're not getting the road fixed now is because they're expecting to let that BLM land go to developer instead of asking BLM for our favor and allowing it to stay open and free. I think it's a maneuver that if I'm right, I think it's shameful. We should hold on to that BLM land that leads up to that wonderful location that we have a trailhead. And so I think we should be negotiating with the BLM to keep that land out of private ownership and not developed. So we need to fix the road, and we need to decide it's part of the, got to get there. It's having a piece of property with no access, in my opinion, the way it's left now. And to wait and hope that some developer will put a road in for us. More asphalt. And in a beautiful location where that extra land allows that nature to really flourish to the best of its ability under stress is a shame. So I appreciate your having brought that up, Ms. Budge. I am very frustrated with this meeting, and I think I get a chance to listen to it and how often parks are brought up, parks are brought up, parks are brought up. But when I say, hey, there's an issue I have on this and this and this, I'm not allowed to bring it up because it's supposed to be for parks only. And so I'm just saying, we can talk about this later.
I don't
but
deny you
as-
the right
now-
to
now
talk,
wait-
Denny. I don't deny you the right to talk. I tell you that we can't take action on it. That's what I tell
Well,
you.
that's
So
fine,
I
but,
make that clear.
okay,
You can speak to what you want. Don't insinuate that we stopped your comments. We don't do
well, you
that.
just did.
No, I didn't. I just sat and said that you can tell us anything you want, but I'll tell you if it's some kind of item that this board can take
Well,
action.
I'll expect that after my comment. And I appreciate the fact that you've been patient with me, but I've been patient with you. I've sat here, I don't know how many meetings, and had questions. Oh, this is parks. But you talk parks at the open space. So when do I get all of these things out, which I think are all gathered together very uniquely because they're maneuvering things to allow things to happen for their, put a road in here. We don't have to pay for it if we let a developer have that BLM land that we should really be looking to get. And if it's not for sale, they might give it to us. They really might if we pursue it with the right nature and with the right consideration. But when I go home, I haven't seen the presentation. It's not here for me to look at here. I couldn't see it on the boards or in your big TVs. It wasn't available to me. I have only the time I can have at a library and their computers. And during discussion, if I want to pull something up, I can. I can't even refer back to it. I appreciate that you would consider, even though you don't have people here very often, that you accommodate us with some consideration. And you have been very considerate to me, and I appreciate that greatly. But I'm frustrated tonight, and I haven't been this frustrated in a long time. And I think parks are rolling over open space, and open space is getting lost in the muck. They'll define their definition here and there, and we're all happy foundation people. They're non-governmental, non-profit. We're going to develop a whole nother government inside the government. I have to be a member of that group to have a say in that group. I want to support them like I would Muscle Power. Great people, good ideas. But it's such a muck for a person like myself to keep up with you. I don't always hear a straight answer. Nobody's pushing to get a real clear answer, yes or no. Just ask yes or no questions for me. I will try to reach each of you with those questions. I will try in the future to have something printed up to say, listen, you don't have to look at my comment. You don't even have to read it. But if you do, please consider, even if you think you know the answer, know that I don't, and I would like clarification. So I really appreciate, thank you.
All right. Well, that wasn't my favorite way to close a meeting. So, will somebody make a motion to adjourn? Anybody?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
There we go. We're done. Thank you. Good meeting. Hard work, I know.